I'm David Kohlmeyer, the founder of the Las Vegas Legal Network. The reason why I started the Legal Network is that I noticed that consumers were looking for lawyers. They didn't know what to look for, who to call, where to go. My goal was to create the Legal Network in Las Vegas to help people find the right lawyer to help them depending upon their legal case. I'm not an attorney. This is a lawyer referral network that is helping people get the right lawyer when they need it the most. We offer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we have lawyers in the network ready and available to help people, whatever their situation or whatever their problem is. Whether they got arrested, an accident, injured, family law cases, whatever legal matter, the Las Vegas Legal Network is here to help people in Clark County.
My son Josh and I work together. It's a great relationship.
There's no competition.
Competition? No competition.
I mean, obviously I'm the better choice.
I'm more experienced.
I can remember all my passwords.
I've won more cases.
Of course, he's had a few more years than I have.
I'm proud of Josh.
I'm proud of my dad.
Now, how do I log back in? The Richard Harris Law Firm, 444-4444, just in case.
And the other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. Hey, this is David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today, I have my co-host, Danny Miner, and Beja. We're talking today about a community problem in regards to a lot of people that have passed away due to COVID and what to do with a person's assets or children that are involved. And today we have an attorney, Larissa. Thanks so much for joining the show today.
Hi, everybody. My name's Larissa Drohobyczer. I am an attorney in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I practice estate planning, probate, and I also do personal injury and wrongful death.
So I wanted to bring Larissa on the show because she's an expert in regards to, protecting your assets and your children. And a lot of things have taken place over the last, year or two with COVID. And a lot of people have been passing away and still, it's a very sad situation. I wanted to talk about a little bit to help people in the community as a problem solver and a retired police officer. My goal is to give people referrals and resources like yourself that people can contact you if they have these problems. But tell us a little bit about some legal tips in regards to if a loved one or a spouse passes away. What are some legal tips that someone should be doing to protect themselves?
Sure. So unfortunately, death is something that we're all going to experience, but a lot of people are very ill prepared for that major life event, whether it be because a spouse has passed away or, another loved one. So I have noticed a drastic increase in my clients due to COVID as far as the estate planning, and also a large number of probate cases, which are essentially cases that are initiated in court to transfer assets of a deceased person to their living heirs. And a lot of people are really confused about that process because there's no real resource that's available to the public that, people can understand that the first steps to take in order to protect your family, which would be getting a sufficient estate plan with a will or a trust or a combination of the two, and also getting a healthcare directive and financial power of attorney if you become incapacitated or disabled.
And you can provide those resources. You said that you have a family wealth planning event?
So what we do for, that's the promotion for the watchers and listeners of the show is a family wealth planning session. And that is essentially a working meeting with me where we analyze your assets and your family dynamics. And we discuss a plan that would be appropriate for you personally, that's customized so that you would make sure that your kids and your money and everything that you love and care about is protected if something happens to you, whether it be unfortunately death or like an accident or some unforeseen circumstance. You want to be prepared beforehand.
So for everybody listening, they would just contact you?
Well, they could contact Dave through the Las Vegas Legal Network, 844 Lawyers.
Yes.
So here's a question, and we'll go over that the information you want to provide, later in regards to resources that you want to give to help out
Sure.
people in the Clark County and the community. I guess let's just go backtrack. If someone we're in a home and, God forbid, when my father passes away in general, we're saying that there's not, we don't have really resources. Like the government doesn't have resources really to help people in regards to like their assets and so on. Why do you feel that? Like basically you need to get an attorney in order to protect your assets. Why is it the government is not providing that for people in the community? Or is there such a thing?
That's
or no?
actually a good question. Well, I just think my honest opinion is maybe that's not on the top of the government's resources per se. They've maybe felt that individuals should or could have that information. So I think that it's something that's not talked about enough, and it's not common enough for people to understand. Like when you pass away, your bank account will be frozen. So if you are the breadwinner and you have the bank account and it's only in your name, well, you'd have to think if something happened to me, my wife, my other co-parent, my kids, like nobody can access that money. And like very few people know that, but that's just what happens right away.
So the goal also is, I think what the listeners of the show also should realize that I'm really big about prevention. So if you think that someone's going to pass away, right, we need to plan that stuff. Sad to say, a lot of people don't want to talk about death, and certain cultures they don't want to talk about until something happens. But you want to be prepared a little bit in regards to assets or money, because let's just say that you're living with somebody and the name of the money, the checking, isn't in the person's name. If that gets frozen, you have no money.
Pretty much.
Right. So you need to prepare those things, right? If you're married and the bank account doesn't have both of our names,
correct,
their bank account will be frozen, right?
Yes, the deceased person.
So you may need to prepare that situation prior, and a lot of people just are not prepared, right?
There's a statistic that 60% of Americans over the age of 18 do not have an estate plan. So most people have nothing. But as far as what you were talking about, the prevention, I have a addition to that statement that you shouldn't wait till you think you're going to pass away, because a lot of deaths for people under the age of 50 are accidental. So you should really have those things prepared. And I've said like anybody over 18 can and should have an estate plan, because it will work for you if you're in the hospital. Certain documents will allow somebody to make your decisions if you're incapacitated. But then like if you have a will that disposes of your assets when you pass, and you can appoint guardians for your minor children in a will. And you can also appoint those guardians through a kids protection plan that I set up for my clients. But it's just good to have your plan together, because then you can live your life more freely, knowing that if something did happen, you have it all taken care of and you fulfilled your promise to the people that you love. Like I didn't just die and then leave you a huge mess, because coping with like legal issues, money, financial problems on top of grieving is exceptionally agonizing.
Are there any I think, when you speak very intellectual, and I think a lot of people, they're like, wow, this is like so much information. I mean, I think the goal is
I talk fast too.
The goal is to get with you and to get an attorney. Don't be so intimidated by getting with an attorney.
Right.
A lot of people feel the way that I've met over the last 7 years working in different law firms, that they're intimidated and nervous to talk with an attorney, where a lot of times they're providing like free consultations or free strategy sessions. Get with someone comfortable like yourself to go over your situation, to see what you need to do for prevention wise and to protect yourself. I mean, if you have assets or even children in general. When we come back, we're going to talk about protecting your money and your children if something basically happens to you. If you don't want the government to get involved, why you need to prepare a little bit more in general. I appreciate you coming on the show just to share with us, because like we want to be educated. People need to be educated in general. So when we come back for a quick commercial break, we will talk about that. So we'll be back in 1 minute.
Thank you.
I taught Josh how to drive. The day he got his learner's permit, I took him right out on the freeway.
Yeah, I thought we were going to the school parking lot, but we jump on the freeway.
Took him onto the freeway in the fast lane. Look, I know accidents can happen,
But it didn't happen because my dad prepared me.
I prepared him. That's what I do.
Dad always prepared us. He taught us to watch out for the expected and the unexpected, because they're both out there.
And that's the way it is.
That's how we roll.
The Richard Harris Law Firm, 444-4444.
Stand out from the noise. Podcasting is one of the great wonders to start creating content for your brand. At Sticky Paws Studios, you have a professional studio with audio and video podcasting capabilities to hit every angle of your market. We have in-house editors who are ready to create micro pieces of content from your podcast to post on social media as well. You come in, sit down, and we handle the tech. It's that simple. Visit our website or DM us on Instagram at Sticky Paws Studios. See you soon.
That was weird.
It happens all the time.
Hey, it's David Colmeyer. Welcome back to the Problem Solver Show. Danny, go for it. You had a question?
Yeah, I got a question. Attorney, I am a state employee. I worked for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so I moved to Vegas 6 years ago. When I retired from police work after 27 years, they had me fill out a paper that if I pass away, my pension's worth a certain amount of money. Like I get money every month. At the end of the month, I get a check.
Right.
But if I die, that stops, and they give my family a lump sum of what that pension's going to be worth. So,
Correct.
So I put down my kids, and I put my girlfriend down. My girlfriend's been with me 12 years. I believe she deserves something if I pass away. But I don't know. We're not married. I don't know if that would be a problem if I pass away. Would you recommend still putting that in a will also, or just because I filled out a paperwork for the state?
Yeah, that's such a good question.
I think you should put down me for the no.
Well, isn't it after 7 years if you've been with somebody for 7 years?
Not in Nevada. It's no common law in Nevada.
Okay.
So Nevada, you're like either legally married or not. But so that is a good question. And that leads me to inform everybody that assets can be owned in 3 ways. And so it could be jointly owned, it can be owned in your name only, or it can have a beneficiary.
Okay.
So on your retirement plan, there's a beneficiary designation.
Yes.
So by law, as soon as you pass away, everybody that you've listed on that paper will get the money because
Okay.
that's who you've listed and it's a contract with the company.
Okay.
So that will not pass through the will if you have named beneficiaries. It will actually avoid probate and will not be subject to the will provisions.
Okay.
The one thing I have to suggest to you, though, is that you mentioned that you had your children named as beneficiaries, and I need to caution you that that is not a good idea to do, especially if the children are minors. And the reason is that minors cannot own anything. They cannot inherit money in their name until they turn 18. Yeah. So what happens in the real world, because I've had a case like this, I had some teenagers inherit their grandfather's IRA, and it's a beneficiary designation asset. So it's like your retirement. Right. So it was left to the minors, and then grandpa dies, and the financial institution will always require that a legal guardianship be set up. And that is another court case that has to happen in order to appoint a legal guardian for the children. Then the money gets blocked in a blocked account, locked up until the children are 18. Okay. And then they get it all at once with no oversight or direction. So for a lot of people, when they have minors, they create trusts and they make the trust the beneficiary, and that avoids the money having to go through the guardianship court, and then the money distributes according to the directions they leave in their trust.
Okay.
So your quick answer is that you did it right. Your girlfriend will get the money, your kids will get the money, but if your kids are minors at the time, there will have to be another legal proceeding in order for them to even acquire that money, and then it won't distribute to them until they're 18 years old. But your girlfriend, it's not a problem that she's not married to you, but you always have to update those, because if you end up breaking up with her or she passes before you,
she's
or
getting it right.
something like that's who you've left it to. So you always want to make sure you're always checking your beneficiary designations to make sure you still have the right people on there.
Awesome. Thank you.
By the way, I think it's really important. Even myself as a retired police officer, I was actually medically retired, and it's important when you fill out that paperwork as well. My situation was a little bit different. I chose to basically have my wife receive money if I passed away on a yearly basis, and you receive less money.
So it's not all at once.
Correct. So you have to, and maybe it's something to get with Larissa to say, hey, what should I do? Because there's so many options. It's kind of confusing.
And
I think it was like from A to like I, A, B, C, D, and it was like, give money here, give money there, take money there, like to get with you or a financial planner.
Correct.
To make that right decision, because it's important. Like him with lump sum, I mean, is it taxable? Is it not taxable, right?
There's a lot of different rules regarding the employee benefits. So your particular account or plan would have like an administrator on it, and they would know all those rules. They're all different depending on the account type and things like that. But the moral of the story is the beneficiary designation will go to the people you list, and it will avoid probate, and it will not be subject to the will.
And you have to contact an attorney to get all of these things set in place, correct?
Well, so with the form he filled out, I believe he got that from his job.
Yeah.
But an attorney will explain how to fill it out, because I've had cases where people filled out their life insurance beneficiary paperwork wrong, and all the money ends up going through probate, meaning it's subject to creditors, attorney's fees, court costs, and it's a huge delay on getting the money because they just didn't understand how to fill out the form.
Understand.
How does it work if there's no plan for someone? How do you protect your money, your children? You know, if something happens to you and you don't want the government to get involved, how does that work with you?
That is such a good question because, as I mentioned, most people do not have an estate plan or a will. So if, for example, you pass away and you have no plan, no will, nothing, then the state of Nevada and every other state in the country has laws that were created that says where your money goes. It's in a statute. And there's a list of priority over your heirs, with surviving spouse having the highest priority, then children, and then there's an ascending order, descending order of who has the highest priority. So the state will choose where your money goes. Even if you've never talked to this person, you've been legally separated, if you're not divorced, your surviving spouse can get the money. So if you want to take control over your assets and your children, naming guardians for them, having an estate plan would be appropriate.
In regard to the children's situation, how does that work with the children? Like if you, just in children in general, like if you didn't have to, like who the child should go to, if you're a single mother?
To the government?
I mean, basically, the government just take over?
Yeah, if there's no relative close, it will go into the system, foster system. But if you don't nominate guardians for your children, then anybody can petition to be their guardian. So it could be somebody raising your kid who you do not want to raise your kid.
Why it's so important to take care of that prior.
Exactly,
So
prevention.
important.
Is that a simple form? Is that one form?
So the guardian nomination is a simple form. We also put the nominations in a will, and we do other planning for guardianship, you know, leaving instruction on how your children should be raised and how much money they should get for their care.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about why will is so important, which I want to know, more information. A lot of people are not educated about that, so we'll be right back.
You know, a lot of lawyers who advertise here don't even live here. If they say Nevada, they're not from around here. If they think our capital is Las Vegas, they're not from around here. I'm Richard Harris, and I am from Nevada. I grew up here, I went to school here, I raised my family here. No one knows Nevada like we do. If you've been injured, call me, Richard Harris, of the Richard Harris Law Firm, 444-4444, just in case.
Looking good and sounding good has never been more simple. At Sticky Pod Studios, we strive to make it as easy as possible to reach your audience. Our state-of-the-art podcasting facility enables you to come in, sit down, and speak to your audience. We handle the tech. It's that simple. Visit our website or DM us on Instagram at Sticky Pod Studios. We'll see you soon.
Better shift down because they're hard to miss. Those guys up there on the billboard. There they are again, just around the bend. Those guys up there on the billboard.
If you've been injured in an accident with a big truck, call the Richard Harris Law Firm.
No one takes on big rigs and gets bigger wins than us. Call 444-4444.
Back off the pedal, don't want to have to settle with those guys up there on the billboard.
Hey, this is David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver, and welcome back from the break. Today we're talking about a community problem in regards to if people pass away, protection of their children and their assets. Again, Larissa, thanks so much for joining us as a local attorney, helping us understand this because it is a complex issue for most people in the community. Tell me a little bit, why is a will so important? People always talk about, like, do you have a will? I don't have a will. Should I get a will? Everyone talks about, like, no one really gets it. So tell us, what is a will? Why is it easy to get in general, and why should people have it?
Okay, great. So a will is a legal document that is executed by a person prior to their death, and they will mention how they want their assets distributed when they die and who will be in charge of their affairs when they die. So sometimes people die leaving loose ends. So a living person has to, like, liquidate assets, pay creditors, different things like that, lawsuits on behalf of the decedent. So in your will, you can pick the person who will do that, name the executor. And if you don't have the will, then your assets will distribute according to the state laws. And it can be a very contentious process if you don't choose who's going to get what or who will handle your affairs, because a lot of people end up contesting a lot of things when a person hasn't chosen their wishes. So it creates a lot of conflicts in families, you know, due to mom said she was going to give me this, or I'm going to get that, or they're trying to do all these different things. So it really is just to prevent the mess that your family will have to clean up when you pass away. And what most people need to know is that the will still will go through probate court. There is a common misconception that if you have a will, you just need to show it to a financial institution or like a home buyer, and that will transfer the asset to your name. But in reality, the court process of probate is required in order to actually get those assets from the deceased person's name into the living people's name. So if somebody in my family passed away and they left a will and they left me $1 million, I can't just go to the bank and get the $1 million with the will. It has to go through an entire court process. And then at the end of that process, you get court paperwork to give to the bank to say, hey, like I now can get the $1 million.
And state by state is different with their laws. So
right.
With Nevada state, do you think you could just summarize it real quick?
Yeah. So the process is basically filing a petition, a court document to either prove a will if there's a last will, or go under the state laws for distribution if there's no will. And an executor or administrator is named. Creditors are noticed through a publication in the newspaper. Creditors have a certain amount of days, depending on a lot of other factors, to file in claims into the case. And then essentially once the creditors are paid, and attorney's fees and last expenses, like funeral expenses, can be reimbursed by an estate. So once all those things have been paid, then the heirs gets what's left over. So
and then with going with you and having all of this planned, that all can be avoided, or?
Well, it can be avoided.
It's still the same process, just...
Oh, well, if a person ends up getting a trust and they fund their trust, then that will avoid that court process of probate. And I do trusts, I do wills. Most of my estate plans have a combination of the two. And I do financial power of attorney, healthcare directives, kids protection plans. So yeah,
that's
getting
good.
all your paperwork in order in the beginning, knowing that you have it. So if the unthinkable happens, that
smoother.
Yes, a lot smoother.
You mentioned before when we met, you were on the show, I think almost about a year ago. Is there a specific celebrity story? I know you like talking about celebrities in regards to like why the will was important. Which was one of your favorite ones that, if you don't want to mention, a quick story about one of the celebrities, why the will was so important? Was it Marilyn Monroe? Was it?
Well, the will was, okay, so there's one, Jim Morrison.
Okay.
He was lead singer of The Doors. I do know a little bit about music. He died, and he was not married to his long-term girlfriend. He was with a lady for serious but never married. So he left a will, and he left her his estate when he passed, which was millions of dollars. But the only problem with that was that she actually passed away before the assets could be distributed. So she never got the money. It was tied up, and she had to resort to criminal activity while the probate was open to support herself.
Oh my God.
That she was a recipient of millions of dollars, but because that court process of probate was taking so long, she was doing illegal things to get money, and she was on drugs, and she passed away prior to actually getting the money. So what's crazy is that she did not have a will. So the money that was due to her from Jim Morrison ended up going to her parents, because she didn't have a will, and under the state law, it dropped down to her parents because she had no spouse and no kids. But then Jim Morrison's family sued, and then they settled out of court. So it was somebody
what do
getting...
you want to happen to your money and
my
your
money?
children and all of that?
Well, I did my own estate
Take control.
plan. Yes, and I did mine, and I tell everybody, do yours. And it just feels a lot better going on vacation knowing, like, if I go zip lining and I don't make it,
yeah, everything is already established.
Yeah, everything's fine.
It's a good thing to have everything planned out.
So one of the great things that Larissa's doing, I know that she is part of the Las Vegas Legal Network and one of the attorneys of the network. And then we work with the Las Vegas Legal Network because we want to have different attorneys available to also provide some free services, discounted services, whether pro bono, contingency, things that basically help people in the community. So one of the things that Larissa is doing is a family wealth planning session, what is the value normally would you say that is if you went with an attorney?
That's a $750 value because it's a 2-hour meeting where I sit down with the individual or the individual and their spouse if they have one.
It's a one-on-one session?
It's one-on-one, 2 hours, and we go through all their assets, we go through their family dynamics, and we determine the plan they want based on what the law is now.
And if people don't have 2 hours, you have a monthly get together?
Yes, I have monthly seminars. And they will be published on the Las Vegas Legal Network website. And they can also call the Las Vegas Legal Network at 844-LAWYERS to get the upcoming dates and times for my seminars.
Okay, so that's great. I really appreciate it. So again, 1-844-LAWYERS is the toll-free number, Las Vegas Legal Network. You can click on, I believe it says events, and then Larissa's information for upcoming future events, educational, will be on there. And then if you need some help, again, if there's a specific legal issues, you can click on there, right? If you want, asset protection or will, and then we'll get the information to Larissa so that you guys can be contacted and get some help that you need.
Don't be on your deathbed wondering where your stuff went to.
So Larissa, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, this definitely is a community problem in regards that the government really is not helping you. You need to be preventive. You need to take a few extra steps.
Take action for your family, for your assets, for yourself.
Correct. Take your head out of the sand, get the paperwork, get with Larissa. And again, so it's Larissa Drohobyczer, and she's available for anybody that needs some help. And again, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, it is a community problem. As the problem solver, bringing on other attorneys and other people to help solve problems is the key. And you, by providing an extra service for people in the community, I think is amazing. And I want to thank you for doing that for the listeners of the Problem Solver.
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
So again, I'm David Coleman, the Problem Solver. If you have any type of problems whatsoever, anything small, big, large, anything that I can do to help, again, there's going to be a QR code on the screen. You can at any time scan it. The ProblemSolver.Vegas app will appear. You can add it to your phone, add it to your desktop. If you have a problem, please let us know. Thursdays at 4:30, if you go to YouTube or Facebook, The Problem Solver is a live podcast. And Tuesdays, as you know, here, 6 o'clock, every single week, solving community problems with great attorneys like Larissa. And my co-hosts, I appreciate Danny and Beja for helping out today.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week, and be safe.
Over 40 years ago, I started the Richard Harris Law Firm right here in Nevada. And today we've grown to be the largest personal injury firm in the state. We got there by doing one thing. If there's a win, we're right in the middle of it.